Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Enterprise Alchemy. My name is Ant. Today, I'm joined by several guests. So let me start. Anwen Bottois, welcome.
Hello. Hello.
Sarah Venables, welcome.
Thank you.
Michelle Hartley, welcome.
Hi.
Hey, all three wonderful ladies in and around the HR Confidence Club, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, we'll see how I go moderating this discussion. Lots of energy today. Sarah, should we maybe just start with you? You know, what kind of got you in and around this space? Tell us a little bit about your story.
I've been in HR for 23 years. It's been a long time. And my very first line manager was horrendous, actually. Jekyll and Hyde, I would say. You didn't really know, which person you're going to be getting on that day.
Right.
And if they'd been in trouble, the team soon got it, and it was awful. I was nearly not confirmed in my post without being told there was anything wrong. You know, the classic that we teach and talk to our line managers about. But I passed by default. Once I pointed that out, it actually got worse. That was my first stint into HR. It got better after that. But more recently, in 2019, my mental health did suffer. And I needed to have some time off work because of low confidence and self-esteem and all those things that we hear.
I mean, it's it's an unfortunate story, but it's one of those all too familiar stories as well. Because, I mean, I've had this, I'm sure, ladies, we've all had this experience, right? You've all come across a boss that were like, God, you are awful. Or seen one that's awful and said, how has this, happened, if you like? So, Michelle, tell us a little bit about how you met Sarah, how you fit in this HR Confidence Club piece. Help me put these puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, I love this. Basically, I am Sarah's chief cheerleader. She has given me that title, but I'm yet to receive the pom-poms. Sarah came along to one of my programs. So I do HR for HR. So she came along to one of my programs called Find Your Awesome. And so we got along like a house on fire, and she had this idea to start the Confidence Club, and I was like, hello, let me cheer you along for this one. And then Anwen and I are in the same business network doing similar things. So we just hang out as HR people doing cool stuff. So that's how we've kind of all ended up in this strange little small world of HR triad.
That's the HR triad. Anwen, so tell us a bit, what do you do? How do you kind of connect in with Sarah and the HR Confidence Club?
Well, Sarah's a really infectious person to be around, and I mean that all in good way.
Not like mold.
No, I was going to say, not in like a COVID type way.
Not in a COVID way. Totally not in a COVID way. And because we kind of met when we were both in our jobs, so I was a HR leader. And I love that part of it, and I love being part of people's development and seeing people grow, and which is why I was involved in the mentoring program that Sarah was part of. And I guess once you've gone through those things, sometimes you can just move apart and not be involved again. But I kind of wanted to still be connected with her, and we kind of continued being connected because she's got this energy, and that's incredible, I think. And HR is a really difficult world to be in. You're often, the pariah, but also really relied upon. And there's this really weird dynamic that you need to be there to support people, but also you aren't always welcome. And actually creating a space where HR people can come together and feel supported in that way, I think is just really, really valuable and really vital. And the reality is you have those conversations, you go, oh yeah, I've experienced that. But you don't feel comfortable necessarily like exposing yourself in that way. Again, I mean that in the nicest way. About
it's not that kind of podcast.
Or that kind of club.
All that kind of club. But it's about
why are you bringing the tone down already?
Exposing themselves to me.
Sharing stories.
I knew this. I knew this would be like herding cats.
But my important point was that it was about sharing stories and having somewhere you can come to and go, I've had
Right.
that awful boss as an HR person. You know, you would hope, I imagine, from an outside perspective, that all HR leaders are the best and create amazing environments for their people to develop into. And they don't. So there are some
No.
amazing HR leaders out there, but there are also some runny pants ones. And
Yeah.
taking care of yourself is really important in an HR space, because if you're not in a great place, it's really hard to do your job. So I think this environment that Sarah's creating, although it's not necessarily an area I work into, because I work with some HR leaders in terms of their development, but it's not an area of focus for me. I want to support her here because I've had that experience of working in that environment. And, you know, that's why we connect so nicely, because I love her enthusiasm to kind of make a difference in this space. And she's fabulous. So it's really easy to spend time with her.
So, Sarah, we touched on a couple of the pieces, I suppose, in and around this, you know, the boss being one. And like that's an interesting point, I think, is everybody would assume that if you're a HR leader, let's say you're a people person, so therefore you're going to be a great leader. And I've certainly seen that as not necessarily the case. But Sarah, maybe can you expand on that a little bit? Why this is getting so much traction? Like, why are HR folks lacking confidence? Where's that coming from?
Big question.
Yeah, I like those big questions.
I'm sure Michelle and Anwen will chip in as well. I think it is multifaceted. I think there's a trigger to that end point, but I do think it's a culmination of a lot of things. And I think, you know, Anwen touched on it about being a pariah. You know, we get with the verbal punch bags a lot of the time when we're trying to advise on policy or on process and consistency and risk to the organisation. I'm not sure the reputation of HR is often quite negative. I think you touched on it around line managers, because we're always trying to do things for others, and sometimes I think we lose focus on our own. But I'm also noticing when I'm having one-to-ones with people that they want to tell me whether it is that I'm infectious or not. They want to open up to me and tell me about traumatic things that have happened to them in the past. And I don't know whether that's a bit of a catalyst as well. And then the culmination of all the other things starts to erode on their self-doubt and beliefs.
Michelle, is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I often think about also this, and I'll get sassy here, so maybe we get a flak jacket. I often feel like in an HR profession, there are no other roles in the organisation where you're constantly questioned and you're constantly pushed to, are you sure that's the right answer? Is that really what we can do? I'm going to Google that and just check that. Like, nobody else does that. Like, you don't do that to your finance person, your marketing person. You might do it to your IT person, in fairness. But you don't do it to any other members in the like service provision in your organisation. And so I think that feeds into like that self-doubt space that HR people find themselves in. And then I think to kind of add to that, there's this space for HR people, a little bit like Sarah touched on, around like moral injury, which you find in education, caring professions, people professions, where you're constantly kind of compromising your own personal values. You're constantly seeing challenging stuff at work. I mean, what other role do you go into where you're dealing with employee deaths, suicide threats, people being very, very unwell, people dealing with terminal illness, people having kids, people losing members of their family? Like, how often do you do that? And that's not even the day job. Like, so how, you know, that's where this kind of piece around, you know, HR people being constantly like pulled and stretched to their very limits as a human being, as well as in that profession and constantly being questioned. So that's my 2 pennies worth. Sorry for the sass.
Yes. I think that's that. Yeah. Yeah. Anwen, anything? I've got some more questions floating around actually in my head after that, but I'll let Anwen, if anything you would add to that.
I'd take a slightly different tack on it. So I think there is that professional aspect of it, but I also think there's the angle of you as a human being in that space as well. And I know that I've experienced this dynamic of low self-esteem, low confidence as a human part of me, but in work, feeling confident and self-confident in that space because I was good at my job and I connected well with people, and that was a source of confidence. However, the minute that became challenged by one of these bad bosses, that had a massive impact on me and actually made me really ill. And that is that balance of actually, how do we take care of the human being behind the HR person so that their well-being overall is in a great place? So actually, when they're hit on their self-confidence in work, it doesn't impact them and harm them in the way that it can do. And I don't think we often do a very good job of building the human being confidence of HR professionals so that they're able to deal with those knocks in the right way. So that's that, and I think that's what this club will create, is that space not just for the work element but the human element of it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So what I'm hearing is that there's almost two pieces to this. So one is that there's kind of a professional trust building issue, right, inside the organization, as in, to your point, Michelle, are these the right things to do? And we're going to, almost, indirectly, we're going to invalidate that, or even directly, by saying, oh, I'm just going to go and check that. And you're right. In what other professions? Yeah, I mean, you say generally, well, okay, you're the expert, you've done the training, and you've got the experience, so that's what I'm paying for. So, I suppose there's that element which is difficult. But the other thing that I think's not talked about a lot, and I'm sure it's the same, like you're saying, in a lot of like professions where you're providing care, or you're, listening to people's problems, dealing with trauma, that takes its toll on you after a while. So I can certainly see how people would be feeling, I suppose, a bit, potentially, honestly, a bit low, or a bit, a little bit burned out, or a bit kind of just, wow, if I'm having my professional, skills questions, and then I'm dealing on top of that with a lot of this stressful stuff, it's just going to start to bring me down a little bit. So what was the idea of the HR Confidence Club? Is it to then say, okay, let's provide a space for people? Like, what's the kind of guiding, if you like, or underlying philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. A space to bring us together. I'd like to say a safe space, but obviously it's the internet, so you can never guarantee that. But of like-minded people who are struggling, who can reach out. Sorry, I'm not laughing. I think there's a delay, so sorry. I hope you can cut that, Ant. To reassure each other and to network and empower. I'll be honest, I've just winged it. I felt there was a need. I felt there was a calling and a purpose, and I didn't know what that was going to look like. And then it's evolved. So I'm bringing in guest speakers, and Michelle was my first one, which was fantastic. Went down a storm. So we can share those tidbits of information, and other people can reach out on a one-to-one if they need that more specialist coaching support.
Right. And
it may evolve, so we'll see.
See, I don't think there's anything wrong. You see, I'm winging it like it's a bad thing, right? That's how innovation happens, Like, I suppose there's a couple of things here. It's an issue, right? Yeah. Because you're all saying the same things. I've spent the last 10 and 12 years working in and around HR in various company sizes, all the way up to, hundreds of thousands of employees. And it's a real thing. There's the struggle is real. So I don't think it's you're making anything up here. But then it's about, you've got to listen to people, right? So like, how do they? And some of it is just holding the space for people and letting them talk and saying, hey, what are you?
And I was going to say exactly the same about Sarah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, sorry. It's because there's a little slight time delay. There was a pause and I jumped in.
No, that's fine. I was going to say, please continue. Tell us more about how you see the value of something like this and this coming together.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the exact same about Sarah saying she's winging it. Like, we're all winging it, FYI. Just because you don't think we are, we're all winging it. Like, that's how the world works. And actually, as you said, what Sarah's done is created like a beautiful space for HR people to come and share that stuff. And actually, what she's done beautifully is created connection in a professional working space, and that is really powerful. So winging it or not, you've made a wonderful space where HR people feel safe to connect. So I think that's a great thing.
Well, thank you. It's tough actually because it doesn't have the rules that Facebook does with the anonymous posting, to my knowledge. I'm still learning LinkedIn. So I think people are struggling more than they're letting on, and I'm really trying to get them to reach out to me, whether that's on a one-to-one or email or what have you, because I don't think they want to post still in the group because their colleagues are seeing it, they're joining as well. So I need to think about that a little bit more. And people, at the moment, I've got the guest speaker once a month, and then I've got a Confidence Coffee and Connect virtual session. And I really intended for that to be more networking, come and have a chat, bring your issues, we'll try and work through them together. And feedback said it might be better to do more themed sessions and some input. So I'm getting mixed feedback. But the other thing people are saying is do more of them.
So what we sort of discussed a little bit about some of the environmental concerns, I suppose, like as in, is it the HR environment, the trust, is it the line manager, right, or your senior leader who's not creating the right conditions, dealing with some of these stressful kind of situations. Are there any, I suppose with that as a very broad context, are there any kind of specific individual themes that any of you guys see in and around this, i.e. is it people are feeling and saying I'm really stressed, or is it, I don't know, I'm assuming, or it may be a combination, right, of all these things, but are you starting to see any themes in and around this? Whether it's specifically with the Confidence Club or with the other work you ladies do. Maybe Anwen?
Yeah.
I'll start with you.
Without getting on my hobby horse, but leadership capability.
Oh, please do. It's a podcast. That's your. This is your opportunity.
Hobby horse time. Leadership capability is such a painful part of this. Whether it's the HR leaders themselves, because again, those HR leaders are still in a similar kind of position of being drawn on and kind of demanded on by the organization, and then looking after my team becomes a side note, and they're great HR people, they should know what they need and look after each other and kind of stuff like that. We've got to stop thinking that HR people getting promoted without the right type of support to be great leaders is going to work, because it doesn't. So I think there's an element of how does the profession need to kind of take care of people progressing through leadership roles so that they are creating the right type of environment for HR people to develop into and to work in. Because ultimately, when we look at teams that we support or leaders that we're working with, we're looking at those leaders and how they're creating the right environment for their teams. Well, why don't we do that within HR? And I don't think we do that anywhere near enough. And I think that then falls into the how do we support just generally leadership capability with the organization. I'll get drawn into doing the job of leaders because we haven't created more confident and effective leaders. And isn't actually what we're there for. We're there for getting the infrastructure right, but also helping the business to grow and lead into the right direction, not doing the job of leaders that are paid sometimes 2 or 3 times the person in the HR role that is being then asked to do that piece of work. So I think, yes, the hobby horses, we need to help leaders be better, and that includes HR leaders. And I think that would really have a positive impact on the experience HR folks have.
One thing I've wondered on this, and I don't know why this, well, I suppose I can see the link, but because HR works with people and says, it's the people function, often, it could be called people and culture and whatever, right, is, you must be good with people. You must be good leaders. You must know what you're doing. You don't need development. And it's like, hang on a second.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You don't just magic those skills out of nowhere. Like, you have to learn them somewhere, right? And then you got to practice them. And it's interesting because it's often when you in the context of development, say, just creating this program or bringing programs in or whatever it is for the business, but then the HR folks themselves are not actually privy or part of that development process. So I think that's pretty profound as well, as there could be leadership development gaps within HR.
Totally. I mean, absolutely. And I think there's a bit of, looking at from the perspective of when I went through my transition of moving into a more senior role, after having spent 15 years helping other leaders at that point, it was like, this is hard. The knowing doing gap is massive. And, there's and I probably would have had quite a good write-up of what I was like as an HR human in businesses and stuff like that. But actually, the transition to then do it, but I remember having a conversation with my L&D team when we were talking about a place for me on the next cohort of the leadership development. I was a bit like, yeah, but should we make sure one of our other leaders gets that instead of me? I know enough about this stuff, don't I? And actually, nonsense. Yes, I knew the stuff, but I needed the space to do the thinking about what that meant for me now as a leader. I just think, please, people in HR, take care of your leaders that you're developing and give them the support they need, because it has a huge impact.
So Michelle, is there a bit of a sense of you're spending so much time supporting others that, it's like, well, hang on, where does get the opportunity for someone to support me or take care of me?
100% yes. So HR are like the cobbler's children, right? Who always have the crap shoes. It's very much
The
like
cobbler's
everybody
children.
else gets.
I thought you were going to go into a fairy tale there.
Once upon a time, there was an HR person. No. We end up like eating last, right? So we end up giving to everybody else, and then we're just taking up any leftover crumbs. And often what happens is, because we've done all of that, there's very little left in the tank for us, and B, left on the plate for us to then get to. I think there's something about we never put ourselves first, and that in itself is a challenge that then leads to the burnout space. I don't think actually there's good enough support generally for HR people. If you are, for example, a therapist, a counsellor, a coach, you have supervision where you can just kind of let it all go and release some of that stuff. And we don't have that in HR. And I think that's a massive missing gap in HR, to be honest.
I thought you were going to go into nursery rhymes then, or fairy tales, because you were then breadcrumbing. So I thought we'd have some Hansel and Gretel, and you're the fairy godmother.
Oh my God, Puss in Boots arrived as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Puss in Boots.
Yeah, I was waiting for the fable. That's why I kind of just leave the space and wait to see what you said. I was like, where's this going?
Damn it! Why did I not connect that the breadcrumbs were Hansel and Gretel? I feel like I missed a massive opportunity there.
Re-record it. Do it again.
So how do people, Sarah, how do we get involved in this? And also, are there opportunities for people who want to support other HR folks? How do we help to get this out there and kind of make this a bit of a movement? Because I think it's really,
Oh, wow. Again.
I love the big questions. I love the big questions.
You keep. I need to get better at thinking these through. I'm a fledgling though, so that's what I'm going to say. People can get involved by giving me a follow. It's probably the easiest thing. You can search for the club. As it's private, I don't think those notifications go out on the feed.
So this is on LinkedIn.
This is on LinkedIn.
So they
the HR Confidence Club.
The HR Confidence Club. So they search for Sarah or Sassy, SASI Venables. Yeah. And that's how I found you. I know, and I was checking your profile last night, you see, in preparation for today. And I was like, let's see. And I tried Sassy, SASI, and you came up. So
excellent.
Yeah. So people look you up, give you a follow, send you a DM.
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
they slide into your DMs?
Slide in. They can also reach out through Michelle or Anwen if they want to as well. So that's
Okay.
absolutely fine.
So, Michelle, how do folks, if they're looking to get in touch with you and talk some more about this, what are your contact details?
Yes, so I'm on LinkedIn. Michelle Hartley, Finder of Awesome is where I am on LinkedIn. You can find me because I'm the one leaving rainbow-coloured offensive memes all over LinkedIn. So I'm easy to find.
Follow the trail of unicorn dust.
Yes.
And Anwen, how do folks find you and get involved in this wonderful initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, get following Sarah, get involved in the conversations, go along to the sessions, just start and see what it would be like for you and get involved, because if you don't get involved, nothing's going to change. So that would be my shout out, to get involved in the Confidence Club and see where it takes you. For me, I'm on LinkedIn mainly, so yes, there's a website and boring stuff like that, but get involved in conversations on LinkedIn is probably the best place to start.
Cool. And are you accepting people from all over the world, or is it only our UK brothers and sisters?
I've had people from Nigeria, Australia, I think. There's been a bit of global reach. It's quite cool.
Wow.
Really cool.
Taking over the world, coming through.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
So you've gone from you've gone from zero to basically a global thing. That's amazing.
Gone
That's,
from Worcester to around the world.
there you go. For literally, you've gone to Worcester, you've had people in Nigeria, then you're in Australia. You're kind of like circumnavigating the globe here.
And thanks to, I have to say, anytime Anwen or Michelle post on things, that increases the membership, which is awesome. So their reach must be really good.
Well, I look forward to, as much as possible, trying to help you with this initiative, right? And just, I think, God, I was going to say a terrible joke then, but then I thought anyway, it's what I use with
I
my,
want to know what it is now.
Careful,
You
room.
can say it and then cut it if it's really rude.
no, I was going to say it's kind of like promoting grapes. It's all about raising awareness.
Luckily, you've got the right crowd for that joke.
Brilliant.
My kids think I'm terrible, right? So I got to find some outlet for my terrible dad jokes.
You can tell them we all laughed and that we loved it.
There you go. So yeah, I think it'll be fantastic to get the word out there about this, and so I'll be promoting it as much as I can. Yeah, by all means, feel free. If tagging in leadership success and stuff like that, and then we can repost and do all that kind of thing, and I can repost, and let's get this moving. Let's turn this into something where people can feel heard, can have a space where they can unburden themselves. Everybody needs that, and so if you don't get the chance to do that, in a professional context in HR, then why not give it a try and see how it goes.
Thank you so much.
Cool. All right, ladies. Well, thank you all very much for joining me today. So this brings us to the end of this episode of Enterprise Alchemy. As always, I'm Ant, and we will see you on the next one.